Thank you all for joining us today for our webinar on protecting your business from viruses and more. My name is Chris Glanville. I'm the Vice President of Client Services at SWK and the Sage 100 Help Desk Manager. The Help Desk has seen an increased number of calls from clients that are being attacked by the ransomware viruses, and we felt that it would be a good time to host a webinar in conjunction with our Network Services Department. John McPoyle, our Vice President of Operations for Network Services, is going to be our presenter today. He's going to discuss just what these viruses are, how they attack your system, your removal options, and preventative measures to help ensure that you aren't leaving your system vulnerable to another attack. Beth McNeil, one of SWK's senior Sage 100 technical consultants who's worked with a number of our clients that have had a ransomware attack, and Dan McGrath, one of our network services engineers who's also assisting with the technical portion of this webinar, are both here to answer questions during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We're going to mute everybody's phone during the webinar, and then if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll answer them all in the Q&A. And now here's John McPoyle.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. Today we will discuss ransomware. We will describe what ransomware is, how to tell that you have been compromised, the business impact of being infected, and how to protect your company. At the end, we will try to answer your questions. If you're reading any news anywhere, you are seeing stories of ransomware. More and more organizations are being impacted, and it doesn't matter what size organization you are or what industry you play in. You are at risk to become a victim of the ransomware epidemic. Some examples include the University of Calgary, which was forced to pay $20,000 to get their data back, or MedStar Washington, which had to turn patients away after being infected. So what is ransomware? We've heard of computer viruses over the years, and criminals have enhanced their technology. Now viruses come in many different forms. Some forms are known as spyware, trojans, malware. So malware is a very common term we hear today, and malware is short for malicious software, and it's basically any software that's used to disrupt computer operations, gather sensitive information, gain access to private computer systems, or display unwanted advertising. Ransomware is a type of malware that can be covertly installed on a computer without knowledge or intention of the user that restricts access to the infected computer system and demands that the user pay a ransom to the malware operators to remove the restriction. Lately, this has been a very lucrative business for these criminals. They do this by encrypting your files, making them inaccessible to you. Encryption is the process of encoding messages or information in such a way that only authorized parties can read it. You have to pay a ransom to get the key to decrypt your files so they are accessible again. So how do you get ransomware? Let's talk about the psychology of ransomware. Broken down into stages, the ransomware operation is simple. Find a way to infiltrate a victim's machine, look at the system for critical files found, and coerce the victim to pay the ransom. Through the years, ransomware has tremendously developed into a very effective cyber threat that no longer just scares its would-be victim with a locked screen, but a notorious malware that knows the weak points of its targets. Like a con artist that carefully studies its target, ransomware has consistently banked on exploiting its victims' fears to make for an effective extortion scheme. You can get infected simply by clicking on a link. The criminals try to trick you into this in various ways on the internet, but the most common way is what's known as phishing emails. These are emails that look very legitimate, normally from a major company, and on the surface it's hard to distinguish a fake email from a real one. They are very creative, and the goal is to trick you into clicking a link that installs malware on your system to encrypt files and hold you hostage to your own data files. So how do you know you've been compromised? One way is you may get a pop-up message similar to the one shown on the screen. The actual message may vary depending on what variant of the malware you get. Ransomware comes in many forms. Or you may get unusual errors when trying to use programs. These errors will vary from program to program, but essentially when the program tries to access its files, it won't be able to, and you'll get some type of error message. In the case of Sage 100, you may notice that all modules, tasks, or buttons are missing on the Sage 100 desktop. Also, the Tab and Enter keys don't work in task windows, where the Tab key will act as the Enter key when logging in or navigating tasks and panels. You may also get error number 2 or error number 17 as shown in the screen. All of these are signs of the CryptoWall file encrypting Trojan. You can also inspect the contents of your MAS90 directory to see if any of the files shown on the screen are present. If so, then you have definitely been infected. This screen shows your Sage 100 files. It's located under the Sage 2015 MAS90 launcher folder. The file you want to open and inspect is the menu mod text file. If you look at the screen here, the image to the left shows a normal menu mod text file, and the image to the right shows the same file in an encrypted state. This is another way to tell that you've been compromised. So what is the business impact? You can just imagine the impact on your business if your computer system is inaccessible. Your business pretty much comes to a halt. Depending on your type of business, you may not be able to take orders, ship products, process documents, or manufacture product. In the case of a recent hospital infection, as I mentioned earlier, they could not access medical records and actually had to turn patients away. So as you can see, this can be very serious and impactful. So what do you do if once your files have been encrypted? You really only have two options. One is to pay the ransom, and the other is to restore from backup. It's totally at your discretion to pay the ransom, but we highly recommend against it. Remember that it's a criminal who encrypted your files in the first place, and it's the criminal you're trusting to unlock the files once you pay the ransom. We have found with few clients had paid the ransom, and then they find themselves paying the ransom again. It seems once you pay, you're on the hook and they come back and affect you again. It's like an ongoing blackmail scheme. So let me emphasize the importance of backups. This is a common theme you will hear throughout this presentation. You definitely don't want to be caught infected without a good backup. We have seen a number of clients get infected. The routine is usually to first identify the infected workstation, remove it from the network, determine which files on the network have been encrypted, and then restore these folders from backup. Then the original infected machine should be wiped clean and have its operating system and program installed. Even if you have a good backup, your experience can be you can experience quite a bit of downtime trying to recover. So here are 3 things that you can do to protect your business. Again, with regular backups, they're very important. You will see, in case the Sage files, it's important to have full backups at the ready. We would recommend doing a full daily backup of your MAS90 folder and subfolders separate than the backup that your IT department does for your network. Education. I can't emphasize this enough either. These criminals are trying to trick you and your people into clicking on a link. The best protection is an educated user so they don't fall into these tricks. You may want to engage a service to test phishing emails to employees at your company to see how many people fall for the trick and then educate them. Lastly, having a layered security approach is the best practice. There is no silver bullet. So what exactly is a layered security approach? Criminals use all sorts of tricks to try to get you to click on something. Educating your users is key. I'll give you a few tips in this presentation, but education is just one layer. Patching your system is another very important way that is often overlooked. The last thing you want to have happen is to get infected with a virus because you didn't have a patch. They may have been released some time ago. We actually had this happen with one of our clients a few years ago. They had their own IT department, and their IT people did not properly patch their servers, and they suffered a devastating attack that crippled the entire company for many days. It infected 16 servers and over 100 workstations. The part that really hurt the most with this is the patch that their IT person didn't install was actually released 2 years previously. So there's really no excuse for that other than negligence. Antivirus and anti-malware protection is also key. You must have this on all your systems and it must remain current. Not just antivirus, but also anti-malware software such as Malwarebytes. You definitely should have some type of email filtering in place. And lastly, but very important, is implement some type of web filtering. There's a very reputable company out there called OpenDNS, and they manage all of the internet traffic in your organization and automatically block websites that are known to be malicious. This is an excellent first layer of security that I cannot recommend highly enough. To us, it's an essential. So here's a few red flags. To the educated user, there are a number of red flags to help identify a fake email. One is the from address. Do you recognize the sender? Or even worse, is it from yourself? We all probably receive messages from ourselves at one time or another, so it seems. The subject line is also important. Sometimes the subject is unrelated to the contents of the email, or maybe in reply to something you never sent, so always be suspicious. You certainly can tell a lot by the content. Often these phishing exploits are sent from foreign countries, and their grammar is not the best. Always be alert for poor grammar or spelling, as they can be signs of a fake email. The time the message was sent is also an indicator. Chances are, if it's coming from a person, it's not being sent in the middle of the night. So always be suspicious of that too. And most importantly, never click on an attachment unless you are certain it's legitimate. This is a very common way to trick people into opening a malicious file. For a while there was from the UPS, a message came in. It appeared to be from UPS about a package and had a attached file for tracking. And this tricked a number of people into clicking on it and getting infected. Lastly, pay attention to the hyperlinks that they send you. On the next two slides, I'll show you an example. So here's an example of a phishing email. This one appears to be from LinkedIn, but many appear from Amazon, eBay, PayPal, or any other major companies, and they can look totally legitimate and fool you. Even some of the links in those messages may be valid, but usually there is one or more links that are not valid. So if you look at this screen, there is a new job opportunity that LinkedIn appears to want you to go to. If you're ever in doubt about a link, a good way to tell is to hover your mouse pointer over the link, and a pop-up of where the hyperlink is going to take you will appear. Pay close attention to the URL address shown, and notice that on this one here, that LinkedIn doesn't even appear in the URL. Clearly this is a fake email message, and I didn't have to click on it to find out. I found this particular tip very useful many times over. Sometimes criminals insert the names of the website into the URL, but it's not actually their .com. So you have to pay close attention. So it's possible in here, for example, it could say linkedin.breakingnews.commando.us. So you want to see what's right before the .com or the .net or the .us or whatever the dot is, and whatever name's right before that should be the domain of that you expect. Depending on what browser you're using, depends on how this tip shows. Google Chrome, for example, shows at the bottom left-hand of the screen, where the example shown is Internet Explorer. So here are a couple tips to help you save money on your IT cost. Once again, backup is at the top of the list. Having a good backup can definitely save you from catastrophe and spending lots of unnecessary money. Another important tip is basically to be proactive. Don't get yourself into this dilemma in the first place. Everything we've already talked about, things like education, patching, layered security approach, will all yield benefits and pay dividends. If you don't have a good IT department or service provider, SWK is always available to help. Here are a few precautionary measures you might want to take. It's a good idea to consider an independent network or risk assessment. This is where a third party comes into your office and scans your system for vulnerabilities and reports them back to you. Another idea is to purchase cyber liability insurance. It's not very expensive, and it's really nice to have should you be attacked. Many companies we see don't have a formal internet usage policy in place. We encourage you to incorporate rules and restrictions into your employees' handbook so everyone has a certain type of behavior. So what is the most important thing a business can do to protect itself? Yep, you guessed it. Backup, backup, backup. I simply can't emphasize it enough. But really all of the above. You need a multi-layered approach. Again, there's no silver bullet. Again, in addition to education, here are a few recommendations to help you implement a multi-layered approach to protect your company. I'll give you a moment to read them on the screen. Well, I hope you found this session valuable, and we really appreciate your time. If SWK can help you in any way, please do not hesitate to contact us. Shown on the screen is our contact information for both our Network Services Division, or NWS as we call it here, as well as the SAGE Help Desk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We hope this webinar has helped you gain a better understanding of these viruses and the steps you can take to keep your system safe. We're now going to open it up for the Q&A session, so I'm going to send it over to Dan.
Hey guys, just ready for any questions that you might have for us. You can send them over into the chat box of your GoToWebinar, and we'll be glad to answer them for you.
Okay, I guess it doesn't appear anybody has any questions, Chris.
Okay, well, thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. If you'd like a recording of this webinar or have any follow-up questions, please let us know. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.